And a good Monday afternoon to you. A happy early Thanksgiving. This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com, powered by Gray Bar. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs, how you doing? You ready for the week?
I'm ready. I have no idea what this week looks like, but I'm gonna be ready for whatever.
So you're still waiting. You're still taking invites to dinner on Thursday and just kind of waiting
Goes that
around.
way with me. Yeah.
All right.
I'm just trying to figure out. You know,
Who's got the best spread?
I'm gonna tell you when he was around. You know, one of the most fun Thanksgivings would be at Mike Shannon's house, and we would start early, if you know what I mean, and we would eat early, watch a little football, and my kids would go. And one year we would go and somebody decided to play Pictionary. I don't know if you remember that game.
I know. Yeah, I know the game.
So can you imagine people who had probably had just a wee bit too much trying to get into Pictionary and draw pictures? And to this day, I think other than my kids being with their parents, that might be the most fun times we would have. So I thought about him yesterday, because Thanksgiving was always that special time. And for me, you know, I'm that guy who will watch football to a point. But now, you know, we've got football coming out the yin yang. You know, we used to only have the 2 games. I think now we have 3. And, you know, man, I'm a guy who's pretty a basic turkey and stuffing person. I like to do everything myself, make it from scratch. Man, I'm too tired to sit there and watch all those games.
They're doing us a favor this year, because right around the time when most people eat, around 3:00 or so, they're putting Cowboys Giants on.
Yeah, good point.
So they're doing us a favor.
You're right about that.
They're putting the Lions on early to
Lions
let people
always going early.
Yeah, so they want people to see, Lions are the real deal. They're putting them out there for everyone to see early, get your day started. And then you could spend time, you can eat, you can nap, you can do whatever while the Cowboys and Giants are playing. And then the late game on Thursday night is Packers and Dolphins. So that should be a much better game that day, and probably the most competitive game of the day as far as good football teams playing each other, because I don't know what kind of Bears team is going to show up against the Lions. So that's your schedule for Thursday this week for the Thanksgiving games. You mentioned you were thinking about Shannon yesterday. I know you were out at the Hall of Fame inductions yesterday for that. Of course, you're a member of that as well as Big Irish, but a few of your friends went in there yesterday as well.
Yeah, start off with Earl Austin Jr. I've known Earl from day one of his career. Seeing him go in, Jim Jackson, who I work next to for baseball season, I think maybe the only engineer that's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. And anybody who doesn't know what a good engineer is like, then you have no idea what you're doing in this business. Well deserved. And Jim added up. He thinks he's seen over almost 7,000 games. When you add up baseball and hockey, he did Rams football. He does St. Louis U basketball. It's almost, I think, 7,000 or 8,000 games that he's seen. And I think that's just a regular season.
Yeah.
So him and, of course, Anthony Bonner, who I've known since his high school days, did his games at St. Louis U with Rammer, ended up being his agent when he played in the NBA, and still a great friend who has a son who's bigger than he is. He's 15. Brock Bonner, just keep an eye out for him. He came into St. Louis this weekend, played against Chaminade. Wasn't as good as he wanted to be. And then they played Hazelwood Central the next day, and I think he had 25 and 10. He's about 6'8", 200 pounds, still filling out. Good jump shot, very athletic, and his left-handed, can play all 5 positions. So for him to be there, and AB and our relationship is one that I have very few like that, and to see him go in, it was a good day. It's a very good day.
The news day started early yesterday, around 8:30 in the morning. Claibs is when news broke of the St. Louis Blues making a move at their with their head coaching position. Jeff Bannister is out, or not Jeff Bannister. He's out, and they bring in Jim Montgomery to be behind the bench for the St. Louis Blues. sign him to a 5-year deal. Of course, earlier in the week, Montgomery was fired by the Boston Bruins after their rough start to the season. This is a move that kind of made send a few shockwaves through the NHL.
I don't think so.
It did.
I really don't think so.
Well, I just think how quick it happened. I mean, the
Well-
moment that it happened, I mean, the instant, I think right after I started seeing tweets of Montgomery being fired in Boston,
Yeah.
you immediately started saying, oh, hey, okay, St. Louis, hey, you're on the clock.
Yeah, and I that's why when Montgomery wasn't getting along with a couple of players in Boston, okay, and I won't say they quit on him, but he just, if you look at hockey, their shelf life is so short, and he gone as far as he can go with them. So when I heard the rumblings of a couple of weeks ago, I said it's just a matter of time before he gets fired. I thought he would be fired before Thanksgiving, because Boston is a demanding organization, and they still think they have a chance. I don't think they do. But with that said, they needed to shake it up a little bit. Now, I don't know if they shook it up enough, but when Monty became available, to me, it was a no-brainer. All you're doing is eating a contract, all right, with Bannister. And I don't know if Drew Bannister can coach or not, to be honest with you, but obviously he wasn't being able to connect with this team. And after their last game against San Jose and St. Louis, they should have won that game by a landslide, but they didn't. It wasn't going to work, and they didn't have an out. And I think Montgomery was the most logical choice because of his resume. I mean, he's been on a winning team before, whether it was in Dallas and certainly in Boston, and it just makes sense. And hopefully he can get to some guys. We have some guys on this team that have gotten 4 coaches fired.
Yeah.
So maybe the common denominator isn't the coach. Maybe it's the coach, the players the coach has been stuck with. And I predict this will be Doug Armstrong's last coaching hire. Well, it has to be because Alexander Steen's going to take over. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say this might be one of the last moves. Guys. Yeah. One of the last moves that he ends up making outside of a few trades as we get closer to the deadline. Claib, you mentioned real quick about the longevity of NHL coaches. Right now, there is one coach who has been with his team for a decade. Do you know which one that is?
Boy. I'm going to say John Cooper.
It is. Yeah. March 25th, 2013 is when he was hired by the Lightning. So outside of that, there is not a single coach that has been with his team for 10 years. Take it even a step further, Claibs. There are 4 coaches, that includes Cooper, that have been with their team for 2.5 years or more. Rod Brindamore, 2018 with the Hurricanes, Jared Bednar with the Avalanche in 2016, and Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh.
What about Paul Maurice?
Paul Maurice was hired by the Panthers June 22nd of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of 2022s on this list, but for NHL head coaches, yeah, you're just there on borrowed time. You're there 5 years, and it's quite you have some longevity there. So let me ask you this,
it's interesting. No, hold on. Before you go any further, it's interesting. The last coach of the 4 major sports who won his last game is Scotty Bowman. And think about how long ago that was when he retired from the Red Wings after they won the Cup. Tony would have been the other guy, but he came back. But the other coaches, and you look at the NFL, those guys, they always lose their last game.
Wait, did Dusty not win?
Dusty, you're right. You're right.
I was going to say, he won and walked away, yeah.
No, he didn't. No.
They
got knocked off the next year.
I thought he
they
walked
got
away
knocked
after,
off. No. They got knocked off the next year.
Claibs, so with bringing Montgomery in, we have talked about this a lot whenever we talk Blues here on the show, of the looking at the future of this team. And we talked a bunch in the offseason about whether or not they should stick with Drew Bannister. And you were adamant that they should start the season with him because this was not a team that was going to win a Stanley Cup. So why bring in a Stanley Cup caliber coach to coach a team that's not Stanley Cup caliber? So you make this move now to go get Jim Montgomery. You sign him for 5 years. What are you saying now? What is Doug Armstrong? What are the Blues saying now about the team that they have and their immediate future.
Despite what their record says, they're not as bad as what they could be. Injuries have had a lot to do with their lack of success. I always felt Bannister was going to be a guy that was going to coach them to a level where some of the younger players in the organization were going to have time to develop. And I'm talking about guys like Snuggerud and Dvorsky and some other young players that aren't even here yet. And you also want to make sure you have a guy who has the experience of working with young players, because a guy like Zach Bolduc, who's a former first-round pick, he's just a guy right now. So I think the reason why I was of the belief that maybe Bannister would be the guy because he worked with some of the younger players. Now, with that said, when you have Jim Montgomery available, who's worked with younger players before and seen some guys really blossom, it was a no-brainer, because now you have an experienced guy. You have a guy who understands development. He's outstanding on special teams. So I think he checks all the boxes, along with the fact the Blues have to look around and say, you know what, our record may say we're crappy, but if we put this thing together and get these guys going in the right direction, we can compete for a playoff spot. Now, they put themselves behind the 8 ball with some of the losses early, but I can promise you this: we won't have many 8-1 games for the rest of the year with Jim Montgomery coaching them.
The Blues right now are sitting in 7th place in the
Next to last.
in the wild card standings, with Utah, Anaheim, Seattle, and Vancouver all in front of them. Points wise, they are 5 points behind Edmonton and Colorado for that wild card spot. So they are. It's still early in the season. You're a quarter of the way through the season, and a nice win streak can get you up there near those teams. But that's something that has to you got to start piling up those wins in a hurry.
They got a tough road to hoe here schedule wise, and I think that they're going to have to do some things differently, and that's obviously why you bring in another coach. But I think overall, I like their direction because, okay, they have good goaltending. All right, once you get your defenseman back, you should be better in that department. The forwards have given you a pleasant surprise on the bottom end. Now, if you get some of those guys on the top end more consistent and wanting to play a little bit better defense and go back to playing a little bit of a heavier game, but being able to skate, this team can get in it, because I don't think there's any team in the West that's going to run away and hide from this thing. I mean, we don't have what Montgomery had a couple of years ago, where Boston just ran and hid until the playoffs rolled around. I think the Blues are in a situation where they're very catchable to someone.
We mentioned this being Doug Armstrong's last season as the general manager of the Blues, and whatever trades he's about to make are going to be those final ones that he is going to have his hands in at this level with the.
The first trade he needs to make.
I was just about to ask who do you see being sent out?
I'm trading for Trent Frederick.
Trading for him.
Yes.
Okay. I want to know who on this team right now you're fine with them sending away.
They're all available. Okay. There's no untouchable on this team. Okay. I mean, yeah, there's no untouchable. And I guess the reason why I say that is because I'm going to ask for something that's worthy of me unloading somebody. Oh, how could you unmove him? Now, Buchnevich probably be contractually is probably a guy you probably can't move. You kind of stuck with Kyrou and Thomas, but maybe Montgomery gets more out of them. You got some other areas you need to look at. This team needs to be a little bit more physical, and I think bringing up a Frederick and move him up in the order and not have him be a third or fourth line guy and let him play. I think he's a guy that can do a lot of things for you. And Jim Montgomery knows him better than anyone.
The Blues next game, they are at Madison Square Garden taking on the Rangers. That game tonight, their first game with Jim Montgomery behind the bench as their coach.
I don't even think he's had a practice with them unless they had a morning skate today, because normally on Sundays they're off.
I was going to say they had a press conference, I know, this morning at Madison Square Garden with him.
So they had a morning skate.
Yeah,
but I'm sure, normally they're off on Sunday because it's mandated. I mean, not because it's Sunday, but you have to have so many days off during the week.
Yeah.
And they normally take Sunday. And with this being a family weekend where you play Rangers and Islanders. Family members go in, they do some shopping on Sunday, get ready for Thanksgiving. All these teams do it now where they have these family trips.
Yeah.
And New York is always one that's circled by a lot of wives and girlfriends to be able to go into.
Yeah, hopefully not at the same time. Islanders on Saturday, Rangers today, and then Wednesday, still around there, New Jersey on Wednesday before they make their way back to St. Louis this weekend. Hey, let's take a break, Claibs. When we come back, a lot of football to get to today. We'll start with college. We'll end with the NFL. And we'll be back right after this here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar here on claibsonline.com. Mike Claiborne, Joe Roderick with you. Another wild weekend in college football, one that looked somewhat, when you look at the matchups, you kind of hoped for an upset. You kind of, depending on how much chaos you enjoy when it comes to this, you hoped for Army to knock off Notre Dame. You hoped for Indiana to knock off Ohio State if you wanted the chaos. We got a whole lot more of that from other places this weekend instead, with a lot of other upsets down the rankings that kind of eliminated some of these teams from the discussion, and I think in a way kept a few alive. Let's start with the ones that probably eliminated themselves, Claibs. And that probably starts with Colorado, probably has worked their way out of the college football playoffs.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody's eliminated because you have your conference championship game. Anything can happen in that final week of the season. I'm not counting out anybody. And I think if there wasn't an example, I thought we saw it this weekend with teams we assumed were not necessarily going to have a walkover, but we assumed they were going to handle their business. And all of a sudden they find themselves on the short end of the stick. I don't take anything for granted this time of the year because of a couple of reasons. One, I don't know who's hurt. B, I don't know if the guys that you brought in from a portal standpoint, are you learning now that this is the reason why they were in the portal from a character standpoint or just an overall skill standpoint? There's a lot of intangibles that go into this right now, so it's hard to say anything is for sure. And the Colorado, who they have left?
Colorado. So Colorado lost to Kansas yesterday, 37-21, and Colorado's only game left. They just so I believe that does eliminate them from the Big 12 championship. They will have Oklahoma State this weekend. Right now, they are 6-2 in the conference. They are behind Iowa State, BYU, and Arizona State. Yeah.
Well, in that case, their chances are limited, depending on what those teams in front of them do. But I think before anything else, they're going to go to a bowl game, and they probably have as big of a draw as some other schools are going to be in the playoffs.
That does, the bowl games though. When it was four teams and you had these bowl games, you could look like, what was it last year? Mizzou beat Ohio State in the bowl game. And you look at that and you go, hey, that was a quality bowl win that they had. You beat a good program that probably didn't really care that they were there, but you still got a win over Ohio State. Great. This year, going to bowl games it seems like it just doesn't mean anything.
I agree with you.
It truly is. I think you are just going to see record numbers of players deciding not to play in the bowl games if they're not in the top 12.
I agree. And I think it's going to be a hard sell for some of these bowl committees to convince these kids to play. You may even have to pay kids to play now.
Right. Why should Luther Burden play in a bowl game?
Well,
why should he play in the Poinsettia Bowl? Why should he play in the Poinsettia Bowl?
I'm glad you brought that up having a conversation with a scout last week, and he kind of rang a bell. And then I called a couple other people who pay attention to the game. And so I said, where's this guy? Where's Luther? Because, at the beginning of the year, he was like the number 1 or number 2 receiver in the country. And to a person, they thought he regressed compared to moving up in the ladder. So the question is, does Luther take a chance on coming back? Now, he can take out an insurance policy, to cover himself. I mean, if he gets hurt. But I guess the other question is, who's going to throw to him? I think Brady Cook's done. And I'm not saying Brady. I don't want to confuse Brady Cook with Phil Bradley or Brad Smith or anybody with a big arm. But, they had the synergy, and that's the only guy he's really thrown to a lot. But, I think Luther's kind of in a quandary, whether he comes back or not. But even if he decides to not come back, he definitely is not going to play in that game. As his agent, I would say, look, man, there's nothing to gain here. You've done all you can do for this program. It's not your fault that you're not in the playoffs.
Speaking of the playoffs, so this weekend you had number 5 Indiana lose, number 7 Alabama, number 9 Ole Miss, number 14 BYU, number 15 Texas A&M, number 16 Colorado, number 19 Army, all losing their games. When you look at the way the tournament, the way the bracket shapes up, and it's going to change quite a bit. But when you kind of assume what we're going to see tomorrow night when the playoff committee gives us their most recent polls, we are in a situation now where Boise State's going to have a first round bye in this. And that's cool to see a team from the Mountain West has worked their way into this, and they are so highly ranked over the Big 12 or any other conference that they get that first round bye. But you look at the other teams that are in this. Penn State, Notre Dame, SMU right now works their way into it with some of the losses from these other teams. Georgia has worked their way back into it. Tennessee, Ohio State, Arizona State is your Big 12 representative right now in all of this. But the biggest name to watch, Claibs, and this is where a lot of the debate is going to be happening. Right now, do you put a 1-loss Indiana team in there over a 3-loss Alabama team? You absolutely have to.
I know on paper you say you should. I get it. But I don't think if you want people to pay attention to your game, you ain't putting Indiana out there.
So if it's a popularity contest because you want ratings, then why aren't we?
Well, that's the elephant in the room, though.
Okay, but that's the thing. Why aren't we then Colorado should be put in there because everyone wants to see prime coach.
Hey,
who cares how many losses he has? We want to see prime, so we're going to make them the 12th seed.
Again, if you didn't learn anything from last year when Florida State got sent home, these people pay a lot of money to put these games on TV, all right? And it's not a knock against Indiana. I mean, Indiana's had a very good season for them being Indiana, okay? You can argue their schedule, Western Illinois, Charlotte, they don't have, an ideal schedule, not to mention they missed a couple of teams in the Big Ten, and the one good team in the Big Ten, that be at Ohio State, they got beat. But with that said, that doesn't mean there isn't a place for them. It doesn't. But let's face it, man. Alabama still stirs this drink.
It does.
Compared to Indiana.
It's not Indiana's fault that they missed Penn State this year. It is Indiana's fault, though, that they took Louisville off the schedule.
Yep.
For my Western Illinois Leathernecks.
Thank you very much.
That's not going to help you out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Beating Western Illinois isn't going to do you any favors in the with the playoff committee. You ducked Louisville for that.
And they're all guilty of it. They're all guilty of it. But Alabama can play Western Illinois and everybody say, whatever, because they're going to go in the conference and they're going to find another good team to play. When you take somebody off the schedule and you're new to this party, it's a little bit of a challenge. I mean, it's hard to take them serious.
But when you looked at the Indiana schedule at the beginning of the year, if you looked at that and you said, wow, we're playing Washington, we're playing Michigan, those two teams were in the national championship last year and we're playing them. Like, you look at that and you go, this is a tough schedule. Both their coaches leave, a bunch of players leave, graduate, whatever. Again, that's not Indiana's fault. They went out there, they played
But it is their
everybody on
fault
the
to play
schedule.
Western Illinois,
It is.
in Florida International,
It is.
in Charlotte.
They did go, I mean, they also, how much, they only had to go out west once. They only had to play, they went out to UCLA and played them once. How much do you give to these Big Ten teams with the conference expanding and having these added road trips and these new teams
I think
that
it
they're
means a
facing
lot.
too?
I think it says a lot.
And they beat them.
When you go out there. But I think when you look at when they did it earlier in the year. Okay.
But
so my
when it's all
point
said and done,
being-
they have one loss, though. They have one loss.
Okay.
Alabama has 3 losses. Tell me why. Again, I don't have a dog in this fight.
Neither
when
do
it
I.
comes to
I'm just a realist. I mean,
when
I
it
like
comes to
Alabama.
this.
Don't get me wrong. Anybody who knows me knows I like Alabama. But, they lost 3 games. And, when you look at who they played, it's one that you kind of scratch your head and say, well, damn, man. And I think the one that really kind of slipped up on you is the Oklahoma one.
Yeah.
Because like when you look at Alabama's schedule, now here's where Alabama, they went to Wisconsin and beat Wisconsin. Okay. South Florida used to be okay. Western Kentucky, they were fodder.
Big Mercer game last week.
Yeah. So, but when you look at how they handle some other teams, I think the one that stands out is obviously the Georgia win and the LSU game. Going to LSU when we thought LSU was a good team.
They have very good wins. They do have quality wins on that schedule. Yes, they do, which is more you could say about Mizzou right now. What's Mizzou's quality win right now?
They don't have one in my opinion.
No, but Mizzou beat Vanderbilt. Mizzou beat Oklahoma. Those are 2 teams that beat Alabama this year. So if we're sitting here and we're trying to weigh that, yes, Alabama gets the edge over Mizzou because they boat raced them at home down in Tuscaloosa earlier this year. But how does that change if that game's at a different place? If that game's at Mizzou in Columbia instead of there.
Let's get out of the if business.
Okay, but so they have 2 losses. Mizzou beat 2 of the teams that beat Alabama this year.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sitting here advocating for Mizzou to be in the top 12. That is absolutely not what I'm doing here. But what I'm saying is when you look at resumes and you look at wins and losses, Mizzou's beaten 2 of those teams. Alabama didn't beat those 2 teams. They both have 3 losses right now.
I think it comes down to not who you won, who you won, beat. I think it's who you lost to. And now you can say, well, Missouri went on the road and got it handed to them twice. Yeah, they did. And I think the South Carolina game has come back to haunt them too. I mean, how you lost against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stands out also. So all 3 of their losses, 2 being blowouts and the third one just being a lack of effort late. They're all glaring with regard to being a complete football team.
So where do we stand, though, on Indiana making that top 12? If that's their one loss this year. They have one more game this weekend.
So who do you flip Indiana for?
I mean, I say right now, Alabama with 3 losses is out.
Okay. Who's the next team?
I think 3 losses takes you out of the mix.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. This is the first year we've done this with 12 teams. Get ready for 3-loss team to be in this thing. And here's what's going to happen. These schools are going to say, you know what? Let's go out and find somebody tough and play them. Let's play them early, get them on the schedule, keep our fingers crossed that they have a good season. So when this debate comes up, and I think that's kind of what Alabama's saying about Wisconsin. Hey, we went to Wisconsin early in the year, okay, and we beat them fair and square. As a matter of fact, it was 42-10. So they went out on the road, and that's the one thing I've given them credit for over the past. They don't mind going to your place, even with the new coach. Now, this game was on the schedule before the board got there. But my point being this, I think that was a more meaningful win than anything that Indiana's done this year.
The debates are really going to heat up So right now where it stands, whoever goes from the Big 12 to the Big 12 conference tournament, right now every one of these Big 12 teams has two. Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State all have 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
Every
One's
one of
gonna
those
have 3.
Well,
Do
and
they
that's what
play
I'm
each
saying.
other?
So that's they. I mean, you have Arizona plays Arizona State this weekend. Iowa State plays Kansas. BYU this weekend's playing Houston. But 2 of those teams are going to go to the Big 12 championship game. And when you get there to that, I mean, if one of those teams right now, if 2 of those teams are in if 2 of those teams are in the top 12, in the top 14, are we really going to punish teams for playing an extra game in the conference championship?
It's a great question. And you know, I've never been a proponent of conference championships for this very reason, what you speak of. So your whole season's riding on one game, and now it has a bearing on whether you get into the tournament. You know, you make money off of it. I think. You know, I mean, I look at the basketball conference championships, and they don't sell them out. You know, you think about how many, and I'll give you a good example. Missouri Valley, great basketball conference, do a phenomenal job promoting it. Unless you have 2 teams that are close to St. Louis that are good, and one of them, if not both of them, have a chance to get to the tournament, it's not going to sell out.
Right.
So I'm thinking in football, because it's normally in a neutral location, although where are they playing it at this year? Indianapolis?
Georgia. They're no, the
No, I'm
SEC
talking about the Big Ten.
The Big 10 championship
Yeah.
game. It's been in the it's
In
it's been in
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if they get in that game, they'll sell it out.
Who? Indiana?
Yeah.
They can't. I do not think it is possible for that. So Oregon.
Oh no,
is
you're right.
already
Oregon, Ohio State. Yeah.
Oregon is already in,
Yeah.
and it would be
Oregon, Ohio State. Yeah. Okay.
So in Ohio State, Penn State too, I think might be over Indiana now with the loss. But as far as the SEC goes, Claibs, so right now Georgia is in the in the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
They have earned their spot. They are in that no matter what right now. The winner of Texas and Texas A&M this week will face them in that. Right now, if that Texas A&M, if they beat Texas this weekend, that gives everybody in the SEC 2 losses, at least 2 losses. So, again, Georgia, if they lose in the SEC championship game, even though they have they're 10-2 right now. Like, are we really going to punish? Yeah, are we really going to punish Georgia for that?
That's my point. I agree with you saying. I agree.
And the committee, I feel like the committee does have to come out ahead of time and say, it would be nice for them to say something along the lines of, hey, listen, we're set. We know what we like here. You know, it's not going to hurt. Georgia can only help themselves. They're not going to hurt themselves.
That's a fair way to put it. You know, unless Georgia just gets the brakes.
Unless they shit the bed.
Yeah, right. You know, if there's something like that happens, then you say, well, you didn't finish strong. But you know, I agree with you. And at some point they've got to find middle ground on a couple of things. These conference championship games, and also this bowl thing, as we touched on earlier. Well, you know, you're going to have the nobody bowl. No, I mean, the good players aren't going to play in it. And I don't know what more incentives you can give these players to stick around. And granted, we're only talking about half dozen guys on each team that are meaningful, if that many. And it's unfortunate that deprives the opportunity for a lot of other kids who are going to play their final game, because they are not going to play on Sundays. So they've got to find a way to make this thing more attractive some way, somehow, to give those kids the opportunity to participate in a bowl game.
It's a lot of fun sitting here and discussing this, and I really think, though, come January 20th, when that national championship game is played, I don't think we're going to sit there with 2 teams and say that one of them snuck into the tournament. I think we're going to sit there when it's all said and done and say that, you know, they were deserving. I'm very much looking forward to those home field advantages in that first round. It's going to be a lot of fun to see if one of those schools, say a Georgia, has to go to Notre Dame in December and play a game there in South Bend. Some of those kids won't know what they're doing in that kind of weather.
I got news for you. There's going to be kids on both sides of the field that have never never played this late in this kind of, and perhaps in inclement weather.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be something where your coaching staff is probably, if I'm a coach, I'm already working on another game plan, and I have time to do it. I'm going to implement a half a dozen, maybe 8 plays that nobody's seen. And I'm going to use part of my practices every day. I'm going to take 15 minutes of practice and work on these 6 to 8 plays that I'm going to use in inclement weather.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think you can go in there and do the same thing you did in September, and you think it's going to work in December, my friend, you'll be at home sooner than you think.
We are going to take another break here. It's lunch with Claibs and Joe. We got NFL stuff to talk about as that playoff picture is starting to add a few more teams to the mix, a few more names into those bottom few parts. And we will talk about that when we come back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. That's because the middle is the most important part. At Graybar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget, with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Graybar does that.
Who does this?
Back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, Mike Claiborne, Joe Roderick here with you. A reminder before we get into our NFL discussion, the Talking Football guys are going to be coming your way tomorrow due to 3 games on Thanksgiving this Thursday. And Claibs, I believe you plan on jumping on with them tomorrow.
What time are we doing this?
11:15 is when they go live. 11:15. So yeah, that's when they'll be jumping on there. Mike March, Jim Thomas, breaking down all of the games from the past week, looking ahead to what's in store for this week with the Thanksgiving Day schedule. But Claibs, this past Sunday, really, I mean, the whole weekend. Thursday's game was a wild one. Steelers lose to the Browns. Jameis Winston. Claibs, I believe Jameis Winston is. We've all seen Antonio Brown and what CTE can do to a guy, and what CTE has possibly turned Antonio Brown into over the years. I believe Jameis Winston has functional CTE with some of the pregame quotes that he's getting, postgame quotes that we're getting out of him. They seem to get more and more wild each and every week.
I think this is the same Jameis Winston I knew when he was at Florida State. He's always been a lively person. I know he's become more enthralled with his faith, and he finds a way to acknowledge that. But this is the same Jameis Winston's always been there. He's always been a up guy. Now, he's obviously at another stage of his career, but I don't think I think this is the same guy everybody's been around. And if you think he's something in football, you should have seen him playing baseball.
I've seen a lot of highlights of him playing baseball, and the arm, the speed, everything about it. He looked like he was a lot of fun to watch on the baseball field.
I don't see anything different in Jameis Winston. I think the fact you're seeing him in this environment and in Cleveland, they're looking for anybody to hold on to right now. And he has a stage. He's always been a team guy as far as keeping people focused. He's been a positive guy to the nth degree. Now, he may say some things and make you go, but I think what he's doing, it's good for the game for a guy to be that positive and a guy to be that thoughtful.
The horse is prepared for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. And then also pregame, I believe he said, it's not about the lights, it's not about the camera, it's it's not about the action. No, wait, it is about the action. So he just kind of starts rambling and kind of catches it along the way and tries to pick it up as he's going. So
who would you rather have, him or Aaron Rodgers talking?
Jameis Winston,
Okay.
You're ready to run. I mean, these quotes sound crazy, but you're ready to run through a wall for the guy.
Yeah. I mean, By the way, we get to Aaron Rodgers later.
So Browns knock off the Steelers on Thursday, and that sets the stage for a wild Sunday of games, seeing kind of the final 10, 15 minutes of those early games and some of the stuff that happened in those. You saw the Vikings hold on to a victory, even though the Bears scored 11 points in the final 30 seconds of the game. On enforced overtime, the Vikings still prevailed in OT, but you saw the Commanders lose to the Cowboys. All this talk of the Cowboys season just being over with and a lost year, and they come out and have 2 special teams touchdowns yesterday to go to 4-7. And Claibs, if you look
it's
at
over.
yeah,
no, it's over.
Claibs, you
No, it's
look
over.
at the schedule. Have you seen the Cowboys' upcoming schedule?
Have you seen the Cowboys?
Have you seen the schedule?
I don't care about the schedule. I'm talking about the Cowboys. They find ways to shoot themselves a foot. Now, I know they've been hurt quite a bit, and that took away a lot early on, especially on defense. But I'm not buying any of that.
They have the Giants coming up on Thursday. They have a long break. Go from Thursday to Monday. They have a long break before they have the Bengals. After that, and the Bengals season has not been great this year. And then they take on Carolina. I think it's very possible, Claibs, that we end up seeing that we could see these Cowboys get back to 7-7 on the year.
And then what? They're not going anywhere. You know, it's really detrimental for them to continue to win. They need players. They need players early to draft. They got to fix that offensive line quickly. And I know they took some offensive linemen this year and they're trying to develop, but don't take that bait, man. Don't take it.
Claibs, your camera froze for a second. If you want to restart it real quick and or I guess reset yourself with the camera. 1 game left tonight. Ravens Chargers. There you go. Ravens Chargers. Your final game tonight. But looking
the
at
Harbaugh brothers.
Yeah, looking at the Chiefs pull off another victory from the jaws of defeat, beating the Carolina Panthers this weekend. So the Texans lose again. Denver with another win. That AFC right now, there's a little bit of separation there between the top 7 teams and the rest of the wild card. The NFC, I tell you what, if you read Philadelphia sports media, listen to anything in Philadelphia sports related, about 5 weeks ago, you would have thought Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat and should have been fired.
He still is.
They are 9-2 on a 7-game winning streak.
Hey, listen. Sirianni was lucky to survive this offseason. If they don't get to the Super Bowl, he'll be out.
They're 9-2 right now.
I don't care. Super Bowl, league championship game. They got to get that far. And they got, you know what? They have all the tools. I mean, when you move Mekhi Becton into guard, I don't know if you remember him. Mekhi Becton at one point set the record for the 40 for offensive linemen in the combine. He is massive. And he was playing tackle for the Jets and had some knee injuries. When they moved him inside to play guard, there's not a man alive up front that can block him that he can't block one-on-one. Period. And the rest of that line is that way. So they have ways they can slug it out. You know, them in Baltimore and Detroit are the 3 best suited teams for postseason, although Detroit's played more games indoors this year than anybody. So I don't know what their weather situation is going to be like if they have to go somewhere. But the rate they're going, they're going to have to play at home for the whole rest. They may not. You know what? You think about it, and I haven't seen the tail end of their schedule. They may not ever go outside again until it's time to get on the bus to walk into the stadium.
Lions, rest of the season, they host the Bears. Their next 3 games are all at home somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, Green Bay, and Buffalo. They do go outside twice. They have to go to Chicago at the end on December 22nd, and then they have to go to San Francisco on December 30th.
Okay.
So two games outside.
And that'll be the last time they go outside this year.
Should be, yeah.
this season, rather.
Yeah. And that Bears game is, I mean, that by then it might be meaningless too. Although that NFC North right now, you have the Vikings with 2 losses, Green Bay with 3 losses. That NFC North is the top division in all of football right now, with 3 teams playing really well, and the Bears just finding new ways to lose every week. The Bears should probably be in a playoff hunt too if they had a little better coaching.
Well, let's talk about special teams too. And how often do we talk about special teams weekly? Whether it's a missed field goal, poor kick coverage, or you saw Dallas score 2 touchdowns yesterday via special teams. This is a game, man, where you have to be solid in all 3 zones. And the teams that are finding themselves coming up short, it's not that they can't run a ball. It's not that they don't do. They can't do the things on special teams they need to do.
Yeah.
And I give Kansas City a lot of credit. They ran a guy out there who's a rookie to replace Harrison Butker, and he's done a remarkable job so far. So again, you don't appreciate special teams until you don't have them.
Until it costs you a game. Yeah,
exactly.
Yesterday, the Commanders lost the game on special teams. Bad kicking, field goal kicking, that's been going around throughout the entire NFL all season. So that's nothing that's really limited to one team or another. I think we have seen, and I haven't gone and looked at it yet, but just watching games and watching the Red Zone channel and seeing how many missed field goals we've had, I think league-wide it seems to be a lot worse than it has been in years past.
I don't know if it's been that bad, but it has been glaring. It's been noticeable. And, you have kickers that go through those phases where, they hook it or they push it right. And, they go through that funk like everybody else. It's just like a putter or a golfer on the putting green. He's going to have one of those days where he's going to have the yips and it just doesn't work. But, at the end of the day, that's part of the game. And that's where guys have to pick each other up and go out and find another way to win.
Field goal percentages across the NFL for this season, Claibs. I'm seeing here it says 84.8%. That is down more than 1% from last year.
Okay.
2019 was real bad. That's 81% that year. I can't remember what year they made they changed the extra point. How long that's been where they moved that back, and we've kind of seen extra points kind of drop a bit since in recent years.
Here's the other thing. Special team coaches have found a new way to create distraction and or attention and maybe get a block because you can't vault a guy anymore. You can't bust up the center. So what I'm seeing now, teams are overloading one side of the field and hoping that they can get a guy either to get wedged through or come really quick from the end, and also knowing who the other side, the weak side guy is that they think they can exploit. And you're seeing teams using different games right now, and I think that's been fun to watch.
I'll have to. I'm gonna have to add up our picks for the past week, Claibs. I haven't done that yet.
Well, who did I have?
You went with.
I think
Ohio
I did pretty
State.
well.
You went with Arizona State. You went with Notre Dame. You went with the Packers. You went with the Eagles. So yeah, you're 5-0 right now.
No surprise there.
Go in there. So Frank was right on your tail with all that. And
Frank's always a regular season guy. He don't know what it's like to be in postseason with me.
Frank picked BYU. That's the lone one. So
he lost some ground.
He did lose some ground. Yeah.
Okay.
JT about to go 6-0 if the Ravens win tonight.
Okay.
So JT right on your right.
Well, he's a Hall of Famer, so I mean he should be close to me.
Yeah, he's seen a lot of football in his day, so he should be.
He should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yeah. So you and him are going to get a chance to talk tomorrow, talking football, Week 13 edition of that with the games on Thursday and the holiday on Thursday. They'll be recording that early tomorrow in the morning around 11:15 Central Time. If you want to watch their show right here on Claibs Online. Until then, Mike, we will sign off for today, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you all next week right here on another edition of Lunch with Claibs and Joe right here on Claibs Online.
Can Graybar help my electrical and datacom jobs be more productive? Yep, our supply chain services are designed to do just that.
Like job site services?
Yep, we deliver the products you need, where and when you need them, no matter your industry.
What if I have technical questions?
Yep, our specialists are top-notch.
Emergency support?
Yep, even after hours.
They're a unicorn.
When you need to keep your projects productive and profitable, rely on Graybar to help you get the job done right.